Gunstish, thank you for your patience, everyone. I had to get settled in as well. Tuhakake wa Kikachuan. It has dawned on us again. You Monday, katawa adayejo tune where conversations. On Monday, we worked on a little bit of the conversations, went over the vowels. We've been going over the vowels and just different things that we can say during COVID to each other. And I have one thing I'll always mention is that different speakers will say things a different way. And something that I usually do is I'll run something over with where I learned is where in cake, because that's kind of where I tend to lean towards when I talk, just from growing up there. I grew up on Mark's Trail. Some of you know or may have heard of Mark's Trail over on Douglas, and that's where our family grew up, and so I did as well. But so I grew up here in different dialects, and so but I tended to lean more towards the Cape dialect just because they're the ones that reinstilled the language back in me, and just like in English, we may have grown up someplace, but we tend to, if we move to the south or something, sometimes we end up getting the southern drawl just from being around people so much. And that's what happened with myself, is I grew up amongst the Cake people for so long that I just picked up their dialect, and that's just how I talk naturally now. So any questions about last week's lesson? Anybody?
Okay.
Okay. So we'll go ahead and get started. Some of the things I can't remember where I put it. It's still scattered. The things that we went over with the COVID, we were asking about the vaccine. Let's see. I can't find my notes from last week on it. I can't remember which questions I gave to you guys or which phrases. But so most oftentimes we have troubles with the different K and X sounds in Tlingit. If you grew up speaking English, um, there's only one way to say the letter K. But in Tlingit, we have 8 different ways of saying saying a K sound. And they're in my auntie and uncle's book, Sneaky Sounds, is a good one for it touches bases on these different types of sounds that we make in Tlingit. And so there's 8 different K sounds, and there's also 8 different X sounds. And I think it was my Uncle Richard that said this. He said that in Tlingit, there's several unique sounds that only Tlingit makes, and so that's kind of what also adds to us being one of the more difficult languages, is what they say, to learn. But I don't feel that it's difficult to learn. Um, is most oftentimes I feel that people who speak another language will always say that English is harder to learn than anything else. So there are 8K sounds in Tlingit, and one of them is the K sound, just like in English, or it's more known as the common K. Um, Another one is the KW, is sometimes like English when it starts in the middle or in the start of a word or in the middle of the word, but sometimes not like English at the end of a word. 6 of the 8 sounds are not shared with English, but some of them exist in other Alaska Native languages. So the 8K sounds that we make, they're the front versus the back, which means the K sound for the letter K, the K is set in the front of the mouth, whereas the others will be set in the back of the throat or in the back. And then you have the glottalized or pinched or unpinched, and then the rounded sounds versus unrounded. And what that means is the only difference is when you see that W at the beginning or at the end of the word, you're just pursing your lips as you say it. So we have the K, K, K. Just like in English, we say the letter K. But then to pinch it, when you see that hyphen, all you're doing is holding your breath as you say it. So say the letter K as you would in English, but hold your breath at the same time. And the next sound, we have the KW. So you're trying to, all you're doing is, like I said, pursing your lips as you say it when you see that KW. Um, let's see. So one, it's not at the beginning of the word, but you could, it's in the middle of the word. Yauk, yauk, canoe, yauk, yauk, or a ship. It can be a ship as well. So most canoes that we think of are kind of like the eastern woodlands and the Great Lakes area. When they would make birch bark canoes, they're fairly small. But our people's boats were just as big as modern day seine boats. They get up to 60 feet in length, or I believe there's even one that was up to 70. And so that's more the size of a ship. That's a good size boat. So yauk is is a canoe or a boat, or it can be a fishing boat. It all just depends on what you're talking about. Oh, that was another one I mentioned earlier when we were talking about masks. Tsitsa yauk, a sailboat. It's referring to the cloth or the canvas on it. And there are different types of canoes. Um, so if you've ever seen, you ever watch otters, you can only see the tips of them when they're floating. You can see their head and their tail or their feet, and that's how they float. That's how you can identify them when they're out on the water. And the canoe, one of the canoes we called them was yucht, yucht, yauk. Yucht is a sea otter. Yucht. That's how I would say it. Others, more northern dialects will say yacht, yacht. But I tend to, like I said, I always go for the cake dialect, and that's what comes to mind is yucht, yucht. Both mean the same thing, just different way of saying it. And those are the canoes where both ends stick up, and they called it the sea otter um, boat because that's what it looks like when it's in the water. Both ends stick up like that. And then the next case on, we have the pinched KW, and like I said, all you're doing is holding your breath. When you see that pinched, that's all you're doing is you're pinching that, where you're holding your breath for a second, very quick second. And as you get more proficient at it, you won't notice that you're doing that. You just kind of do it automatically. I'm trying to find think of a word.
Egg.
Oh yeah, quat. So there's a man who lived in Cape, Frank Johnson. His Tlingit name was Taukwati, winter eggs, which refers to the ravens when they lay their eggs in the wintertime. Taukwati. He's a very good storyteller. Quat. So all these, the first four K sounds that we went over, are all made in the front of the mouth. The next ones you gotta practice a little more, and you use muscles that you don't normally or aren't used to using anymore. So it's just set in the back of the throat, just like that. It's said right here, like you're trying to swallow it. Let's see the word for scissors, ha shachasha, ha, and man shachash, scissors for ha shachasha. Ha shachasha, or pakajate, chair, pakajate. Um, up this way, they would say kayakajate, kayakajate. Like I said, I kind of tend to. So the southern speakers really knew how to shorten words, and that's one of them, kakajate. So kakajate or kayakajate. But it doesn't mean that sometimes my grandma would always say, just to say one thing in English sometimes would be a mile long and can get, so it's just how descriptive it can get. And this one is usually really hard for most speakers. It's the underlying pinch K. The one I could think of, a taste, which is the word for a pitcher, but it's referring because it has that lip on it. Pitchers have that lip. That's what it's referring to. A taste. is a pitcher. Here's another one. The underlined K with the W. It's might be kind of hard to hear me, but this one you can refers to yourself, kwa, or means and, kha, kwa, as for myself or and me. Instead of saying kwa, it's shortened to kwa. Idat kwa, and right now. Now, however, depending on how you're using it, kwa, idat kwa, and now, kha, kwa, myself and myself. And then the last case on that we use is an underlined pinched K with the W.
For that last word, Yanduin, is there an accent on the A?
No, just kwa
On a sheesh.
by itself. So you'll hear that kwa in different contexts. Some speakers will use it more than it just depends on their flavor, what they like, or how they heard it growing up. I can't think of a word for that underlined pinched K. I was
pot, kade. Quack, pot.
Quet. 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 So you're trying to I'm not sure how to explain that one. Quet. I think my brother said what you're trying to do is cut the air off in your throat when you make that sound. Quet. You're using that muscle in there to make that sound. I'll have to ask him again. Qua is it's another way of saying and. Not myself. It's just and. It's it's the short way of saying qua. So that's where it came from. Qua was shortened to qua. I guess another example would be Kwan. Kwan, people of an area. And that came from Ku'u'an. Ku'u'an. So they shortened that to Kwan. It's important to say it correctly, because if you just say Kwan, Kwan means smallpox. So be careful saying those two. Now, I don't know if you can hear the difference or not. If just Kwan, just regular K like we do in English, Kwan, and then Kwan. It's more guttural, more in the back of the throat. So Aukwan, Kukwan, Huna Kau. Or that one's different. They don't call themselves Kwan because I remember them saying that's because they don't originate from there. They come from Glacier Bay. So that's why they became Huna Kau people. That's a hard one to translate. Kwan. So we even have different ways of saying things about different people. So in cake, we'll say qeeq. Up here, my auntie would say qeeq. Both mean the same thing, it's just a dialect difference. Both mean, like I said, yeah, they both mean the same thing, but that's just what they call, how they say it. But in cake, they say qeeq. The original name was Xiechechuan, which means the town that didn't sleep. That was the original name of the cake. When I was living there, they told me that was because it was during a party. There was a party going on there, and the party went on for several days, and nobody slept. So somebody got up and said, from now on, the town will be called the town that doesn't sleep. So is sleeping for more than one person sleeping. If you think about it, when somebody's sleeping really hard, when they sleep hard, that sound kind of makes that sound when they're breathing. So to me, that's what it sounds like. Or for one person just sleeping, it's ta. If you're downstairs and they're sleeping upstairs, kinak ta. They're sleeping upstairs. Kinak, up, it means up. Kinak ta. And those all change. Those all change too. So like if a bear is sleeping when they hibernate at night or in the wintertime, you say tauk ka nachasnatej. Tauk ka nachnatej. So ta switched to tej because it's in a different context now. But it means they sleep throughout the winter. They always sleep throughout the winter. Is what it'll translate to, or in English they hibernate. The bears always hibernate. Any questions about the K sounds? So you got to add the L on the xie, on. Sometimes they'll tease you and say the home of the sweet people. Isn't that right, Rose? So a lot of the names that are in English now are just anglicized words of Tlingit names. Huna was originally Huna. Skagway was Shkagway. Tlakwan, Klakwan. Tlawak, Klawak. Ketchikan, Kitchkan, and so on and so forth. They weren't able to say we weren't able to pronounce our words or things in Tlingit, so they anglicized them, and that's how it is now. And they're all very descriptive words. There was the lady Emma Williams, she wrote about the word, why they called it Ketchikan, Ketchikan. It means town next to the putrefied creek. So the word for when a fish gets putrefied, and they get real stinky in the summertime, maybe it's a hot summer day and they really start to smell. In Tlingit, that's called kitch, is what she said they called it. So that X sound means along it, kitch. So along the putrefied river, on, town, the town next to it, Kitchkhan became Ketchikan. Khuna originally was Khuna, and even that we shortened it from Khunia. Khunia in lee of the north wind, because when it really starts to blow in the wintertime, like now, the wind always comes from the north. And so our people would try to find protection from certain areas that were real bad in those areas. And Huna was real cold in the wintertime if you were on the wrong side of it. So they would settled in that bay. And the word for the way I heard it in the cake, what they called Petersburg was Sitka. It sounds similar to Shiatka. Shitka. It's referring to the town behind the islands. But Sitka, Seat is another word for a bay. It just means inside the bay, Sitka. And then when they had the steamships, the name changed to some of the speakers and it became Gantinyauk Seidi, the bay of steamships. So gun is a word for firewood. And so that's what they used for those steamships. Gantinyauk. Tin means with. So they had to use fire with it, or to burn it, or to make the steam. So it's referring to those Gantinyauk steamships. The steamship bay was Petersburg, Kachkanauk, Wrangell, Stettin, Kiev became cake, Sitka, Shiitka, Yakutat, Yakutat. Quite a few of them became just English names. And each person spoke a certain way too. You could tell where somebody was from just by the way they spoke or how they speak in Tlingit. There was a man in Cake. He was originally from Kloak, so he had my gram them. They would talk to him in Tlingit just because they like to hear him speak, because they had more of a sing-song dialect, is what the best way they could put it. So when they would ask him, Wasiiti, here's another one you can add to a response. They'd ask him, Wasiiti, and he'd say, Oh, ha'cha'an. Ha'cha'an, meaning it's like another way of saying Tlithwasa. Ha'cha'an. Cha'an. But that's what she told me. That's how he would respond. Ha'cha'an. So that's another way you can say it, but you could just say Ha'cha'an. To hear the difference how I said it versus the way he said it, and he was originally from Kloak. I'm trying to think of another way the people would describe them in Kloak. Hey Nya, referring to them being on the ocean side. Hey Nya Kwan. Trying to think Ruth, when she described it, she would say, "Good day, Sayani good." You know, up here we just say, "Good day, Sayani good." Where are you going? But they had a more sing-song to it. "Good day, Sayani good." So means the same thing, but just a little more sing-song. That's how they just best way I can describe it. I don't know if any of you folks have been on the University of Fairbanks Language Archives. So they have Emma Williams on there, and Emma Williams and a few Ketchikan dialect speakers. Listen to them talk about the words, and just the way they talk in English is very different, very different. But it all means the same. Some words change down there, but it's very, very sing-song, very sing-song. To me, it sounds like it anyways. And there's another one. I was listening to him and Emma and Frank talk about words. They were trying to, and you could see in their minds, they were trying to see what in English they were talking about. And that's the way they described it. They said, "This is the only way I can see it," was the way they put those words into context for the English speaker. So that's also just to show how very descriptive and how much our language paints a picture for you. Once you begin to understand it, you start to see it. Let's see, like, I shook his hand. I shook his hand. But it he got scared. So if you ever think about, to me, the way why they describe it that way is when somebody gets startled, you know, they jump. When you go to shake somebody's hand, sometimes it's real abrupt and they bring their hand up fast. So to me, that's kind of what it sounded like. How descriptive it was. His hand came up like it was scared. He or she got scared, you know, startled, makes them jump. Any questions? Probably have to cut it short early today again too, because I gotta drive in the snow. Roads are icy and gotta take a little bit longer to get to my next class. No questions, comments? Everybody take care of yourself. Wear your masks.
Gonna cheers.
See you,
You kawa.